In this episode, we're going to focus on the part of Git that lives entirely on your own machine, because that local side is where you build clarity and confidence before you ever share changes with anyone else. Beginners sometimes think Git is mainly about uploading code to a shared place, but Git's real superpower is that it lets you record what you changed, why you changed it, and how those changes relate to what came before. That matters for automation work because automation tends to be sensitive. A small change can affect reliability, security, and deployability in ways you might not notice until later. Local Git commands give you a safe way to experiment, compare, and recover without panicking or losing track of what you were trying to do. If you learn to use the local repository as a thinking tool, you will spend less time guessing and more time making controlled, reversible progress. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good starting point is understanding the working tree, because it is the place where your files actually sit and where your edits happen. The working tree is just your project folder on disk, but Git treats it as the visible surface of a deeper history. When you edit a file, you are changing the working tree, not the history, and Git can detect those differences. This distinction matters because it means you can make a mess in the working tree without permanently damaging the project's timeline. Beginners often fear that one wrong move will ruin everything, but local Git is built around the idea that you can always compare the current state to what is recorded. The local commands that show status and differences are like a dashboard that tells you where you are and what you've changed. If you build the habit of checking that dashboard, you stop losing context, even when you pause work and come back later. One of the most practical local skills is being able to answer a simple question at any moment. What exactly have I changed since the last known good state? Git gives you that visibility by tracking modifications, new files, deleted files, and renamed files. When you can see those changes clearly, you can make better decisions about what belongs together and what should be separated. This is especially important for automation because deployable automation benefits from small, focused changes that are easy to review and easy to roll back. If your local work becomes a single giant blob of unrelated edits, you lose context and you make future troubleshooting harder. Local commands that show changes are not just for curiosity. They're the tool that keeps your work organized as you go. That organization is what lets you stop in the middle of a task and return later without wondering what you were thinking. Another core idea is the staging area, sometimes called the index, which sits between your working tree and your committed history. The staging area is like a packing table where you decide what you're about to record. Beginners sometimes commit everything they changed because they don't realize they can choose, and that leads to noisy commits that hide the real intent. The staging area lets you assemble a commit that tells a clear story, even if you made many edits while exploring. For example, you might fix a bug and also adjust formatting, but it can be cleaner to stage and commit the bug fix separately from formatting. This separation matters for automation because a deploy failure might be caused by the bug fix, not the formatting, and you want your history to help you isolate the cause. Local Git makes that possible by letting you curate what gets recorded each time. Committing is the act of turning your stage changes into a permanent snapshot with a message that explains intent. A commit is not just a save point. It is a decision to preserve a coherent change in the project's history. Good commit habits help you keep context because your history becomes a narrative you can follow later. For beginners, the message is not about writing poetry. It is about being specific enough that future you can understand why the change happened. In automation work, that can mean noting that a change improves reliability, reduces dependency risk, or adjusts behavior to match an expected workflow. The local commit history becomes a map you can consult when something breaks or when you want to understand how a behavior evolved. If you treat commits as thoughtful checkpoints rather than as random dumps, you make your project easier to maintain and easier to deploy. Branching is another local tool that helps you keep context by separating lines of work. A branch is simply a pointer to a series of commits, and locally, it lets you create a safe track for a change without disturbing your main line. Beginners sometimes fear branches because they sound advanced, but at a basic level, they are just labels for different versions of your history. If you are exploring a risky change, a branch gives you permission to try it without contaminating the stable path. For deployable automation, this is useful because you can keep a reliable baseline while you test adjustments and only merge them when they are ready. Even if your team uses specific branching strategies, the local skill is understanding that branches help you manage attention. They let you focus on one goal at a time, and they preserve the context of that goal in the commit history. Local history inspection is where Git becomes a learning tool rather than just a storage tool. Being able to look back and see what changed, when it changed, and how files evolved is essential for debugging and for preventing repeated mistakes. When automation breaks at runtime, you often need to answer questions like, what changed since the last successful run, or which commit introduced a behavior shift? Local commands that show commit history and file-level changes help you answer those questions without guesswork. This is also where you start to see the value of small commits, because small commits make the story readable. If you have a clean history, you can isolate a change quickly, reason about its intent, and decide whether to revert or adjust it. That is what it means to track work without losing context. You always have a trail you can follow. Reverting and resetting are two concepts that can sound scary, but are really about recovery and control. Reverting means creating a new commit that undoes the effects of a previous commit, which preserves history while correcting direction. Resetting changes where a branch pointer points, which can rewrite your local view of history depending on how it is used. You do not need to memorize the mechanics here to understand the mindset. Local Git is designed to let you recover from mistakes. The key is to choose recovery actions that match your situation and respect shared history when collaboration is involved. Locally, you often have more freedom because you are not affecting anyone else yet. That freedom is valuable because it encourages experimentation, and experimentation is how you learn. Deployable automation benefits when you can try changes, observe outcomes, and roll back cleanly without losing your bearings. Another local concept that helps maintain context is the stash, which is like a temporary shelf for work you are not ready to commit. Sometimes you are in the middle of changes and you need to switch tasks quickly, maybe to address a bug or check something urgent. Stashing lets you set aside incomplete work and return to a clean working tree without discarding what you did. For beginners, this can prevent a common problem where you keep half-finished edits around and then forget what is complete and what is experimental. The bigger idea is that Git supports context switching, which is a real-life need in automation and operations. Your work does not always progress in a straight line, and local Git gives you tools to pause safely. When you can pause safely, you reduce the pressure to rush or to cram unrelated changes together. It's also important to understand that local Git can help you validate what you are about to share, even if you never mention a remote. Before code is coordinated with others, you want to be sure you know what you are sending and what story it tells. Local tools that show differences, staged content, and recent commits let you do a quick self-review. In automation code, this self-review step is especially valuable because mistakes can have operational consequences. A missing dependency reference, an accidental file deletion, or a subtle behavior change can become a runtime incident if it makes it into the deploy path. Local Git commands help you catch those issues early by making changes visible in a structured way. Visibility is a form of safety, and local Git is one of the simplest safety systems you can adopt. There is also a subtle but powerful mindset shift that happens when you rely on local Git. You stop treating your code as a single fragile object and start treating it as a series of deliberate states. Each state can be inspected, compared, and restored, which makes you more confident and more willing to improve the automation. That confidence supports better design choices because you are not afraid to refactor or simplify when you need to. For beginners, this can reduce the tendency to avoid changes out of fear that you will break something and never recover. With Git, you can always go back to a known good commit, and you can always study what changed in between. This makes learning faster because you can test ideas and then review the evidence of what worked and what didn't. In deployable automation, faster learning leads to better reliability over time. To bring it all together, local Git commands are about keeping your work grounded in context, what you changed, what you meant, and how your changes connect to the project's history. The working tree lets you experiment. The staging area lets you curate. Commits let you record clear intent. branches let you separate goals, and history tools let you diagnose and learn. Recovery tools like reverting and stashing reduce panic and support real-world interruptions. When you build these habits, you create automation code that is easier to review, easier to debug, and easier to deploy because the history tells a coherent story. The local repository becomes your safety net and your notebook at the same time, which is exactly what beginners need as they grow. If you can track your work locally without losing context, you are already operating with the mindset that makes automation trustworthy in production environments.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.